Welcome to Inside Design with Kandrak and Cole, hosted by two nationally published Atlanta interior designers, Joanne Kandrak and Kelly Cole. These energetic women are also world travelers, charity givers, and bloggers with a wealth of information to share and stories to tell about the interior design world. Okay, now just a warning, this is going to be fun and not too serious. After all, they still do have an interior design business running at full speed.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 62 of Inside Design with Kandrak and Cole. And today we're talking about the designer experience in Asheville, North Carolina. So this is an immersion event, the second one that we've attended with Designers Today magazine and PBM events. And like I said, it was in Asheville, North Carolina this time. And we wanted to share with you all about our experience because if you're a designer at any level, or you're right out of school, or you're very seasoned, the value of these kind of events is tremendous. And if you aren't a designer and you're listening to this episode, it should be interesting to you because we're going to talk all about the knowledge that we have as professional interior designers and the crazy ways that we learn about our trade.
Yeah, so this event was held just this past August 19th to the 21st, and it was 3 wild and crazy days. And we went to the infamous Biltmore Estate in Asheville, and we literally did not stop from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m.
We didn't breathe.
Yeah,
forget
because
it.
There was so much to pack in, and as tired as we were, you kind of get that adrenaline, and there was so much great stuff. So the first big event was an interior design and historic preservation tour of the Biltmore Estate, held by the Biltmore's chief curator. So they talked to us about the restoration efforts that they're doing, and we got really a behind the scenes look of how they figure out the original wallpaper and the fabrics to restore the grand rooms, to what they were back in the day.
It was fascinating. I didn't realize that the historical, what do you call them? The preservation team that they have at the Biltmore is constantly working to research and go back in time to make the Biltmore as it was when the famous Vanderbilt family lived there, because they were a very private family and they didn't take a lot of photographs. So to go back and to really recreate exactly how it was.
I thought it was interesting, peeling away the wallpaper, that may have had several layers. But in one of the rooms, they said they had to pull off the beautiful, the molding, and that the actual real wallpaper was underneath. And then they have to go through and get all the correct shades to get the color the way it was then.
And they're working with artisans around the world, especially in Europe, to create these artisan reproductions of what was. And Joanne and I were on 2 separate tours, and I don't know if I told you this, but one of the our tour guide told us that one way that they were learning how to recreate Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt's kind of drawing sitting room was they had a journal from the butler. And he documented what he did every day. And so he would say things like, I moved the green settee today out of the drawing room and into the blah, blah, blah. Well, they had a green settee in storage. They didn't know where it once was, things like this.
That's kind of cool.
This is how they're slowly, meticulously putting these rooms back to life.
But I have to tell you that our tour guide, those people are so into it.
I couldn't believe it.
So
knowledgeable.
And they really love their job. You can tell they love to explain all this stuff. Yeah, the tour guides were great.
So if you live anywhere in, the Southeast, this is a great trip to go on. We stayed at the Inn on Biltmore, and it was beautiful. There's lots of places to stay all around. Asheville's a very easy, walkable, navigable town. I really recommend it. Even if you're not a history buff, you will totally love it. And the Biltmore Christmases to die for. I will add that. So our day continued.
Okay, so this was one of my favorite things. We did some factory tours, and the first one was at Lexington Brands. And to be able to see their fabric resource room, and just kind of how they operate within the factory. They have 5 new outdoor collections coming out. So we got to see the frames, we got to see the leather and the fabrics. The laser cutting of the fabrics was
the coolest.
Yeah. How do you even explain? So was it a projector?
Well, they did it two ways. So the fabric comes through this big roller, and then the footprint of that piece of furniture is uploaded into this software, and there's this projector up above that shoots down onto the fabric and creates these laser lines, and then the cutter, which is a piece of machinery, not a person, although there are lots of people cutters, follows the projected lines to cut, the arm, the skirt,
it's basically
all
the pattern.
pieces.
It's basically the pattern that's cut into those pieces.
I couldn't believe it. But just to step back, you mentioned the resource room. So I'm just so impressed by, you think, okay, for every High Point market or every season, how do these manufacturers come out with new collections, one on top of the other, on top of the other? And so we met with the woman who is in charge of all the trending and forecasting and creations for Lexington. And she had this huge room with like 2 or 3 big, huge islands and bulletin boards everywhere and pictures of fashion and travel and automotive. I mean, all these things that were
all
combining
inspirational
to inspire the new collections, fabrics everywhere. So for the new colorways, and I can't even imagine how like on top of trends she has to be. So she goes to New York fashion shows. She goes to Maison Alger in Paris. She goes all over to stay on top of the trends so that Lexington can have, a successful launch of a collection time and again.
Yeah.
It was just fascinating to me.
Yeah. And then their sample room, which is, I mean, we talked about trying to shop online and looking at things on a screen versus something you see in person. Their sample room is ginormous. They have someone who literally just cuts the squares and puts the Lexington kind of cardboard tag on there with the pattern number and all that. And this is just sampling
is a job unto itself.
Is a huge job unto itself. And it's so nice because when you have the literal samples in front of you, you know that you're getting it right. But to watch that in action, the room was huge. It was so amazing.
It really was. And so clean. Mm-hmm. It was fascinating.
The sewers, watching the people sewing. Oh my God.
It was awesome. And I don't know if we moved on right after that. We had a quick lunch sponsored by Sylvester Alexander Furniture, who are our new friends and our new fave line. And then we moved on to Vanguard. And I can't remember if it was Vanguard or Lexington where they had the sewers were working on standing machines. It may have been Vanguard where they were working, they weren't sitting down and sewing anymore. They were standing. Yeah. Let me tell you what, in this day and age of imports from Asia and all around, and furniture that you can have delivered to your house for free in 2 days from certain websites, to be in a United States factory watching like hardcore Americans who are, let me tell you, most of them are older. The tenure at these factories was incredible. I know I asked one of them what their average age was, and I want to say it was like 52 or something crazy like that, because these people are on their feet all day
They're
long.
in an area of North Carolina, Hickory, which is really just the furniture. I mean, it's really just furniture manufacturing that goes on there. There are not a lot of jobs in that particular area. And a lot of these are maybe second and third generation workers whose parents or whatever. And this is a skill that you just can't go to college to learn.
No. And we talked a little bit about, in a past episode when we were at Vanguard, they did the demonstration of what 8-way hand tied is. And now you may have heard of 8-way hand tied is a signature way of manufacturing a very quality piece of furniture. And what it is, it's handmade. And so in the seat of let's say a chair, you have the springs, okay? When it's 8-way hand tied, a person physically takes strong string and ties the springs across, diagonal, up and down in 8 different configurations, so that if there's a very if there's a big dog, laying on if somebody slides off the sofa or chair all the time, if a kid is jumping on it, the springs go up and down. They don't go forward and back or side to side. So the cushion stays, in the way it's supposed to be.
And these are what we call the forever pieces.
Yes.
Like these are the kind of chairs that you will see like in an antique store because the quality is so that the upholstery may be really dated, and maybe if there's any wood, attached to it might be, but the actual seat is something that's worth recovering. These are pieces that will stand like the test of time for sure. Not that you have to have a piece like all of these in your home, but sofas and chairs especially, the comfort level, there's no way to describe the difference when you sit in them.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you get what you pay for, and this is to me like the visual of that, to see a piece of furniture go through these stations and to see men and women, young and old, working on these pieces we watched a woman do nail heads all along this chair. It was amazing, her skill level. She was like, boom, 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 boom. And then she straightened and and then we'd move on to another station and this guy was hand tufting a sofa. I mean,
people that spend all day stuffing the cushions.
The pillows.
I hate putting pillows in pillowcases. Yeah. And this is what people do all day long. And they put them in there's a lot of pride in their work for sure.
Totally. And you know how, like some of, not just throw pillows, but the cushion pillows and chairs and sofas, you try to get them off to wash them and it's, you're going to break your back. Imagine. Well, there was one lady, she had a machine that was helping her put that big, huge cushion into the pillow. And then she passed it over to two men and they finished stuffing it.
Yeah. There was a lot more there was a lot more things being done by hand than machines, for sure.
And that surprised me. I didn't know, until we went there. And now it's kind of like the first time we were at ADAC and we saw that Turkish man weaving a rug by hand. As soon as you see that craftsmanship and the time and you learn, that rug took me 1 month to make, it's like you're ready to pull out your checkbook. Like you understand the quality of it.
Or after going to a concert and you hear that song.
Yes. You love that artist
there's
even more.
something a little more special about when you hear that song. And I think it's the same thing for us going and see, I've always known, the more quality furniture manufacturers, but to really see it and to try to make our clients understand that you're paying for something that's just a little step above maybe than what you're used to.
Or a lot step above. Yeah. The last thing we saw at Vanguard that it was so incredibly cool, and I don't know if we've talked about this before, but Vanguard's one of the manufacturers, one of our prime manufacturers that we use, and they have a collection called Make It Your Own, and it really crosses a lot of different styles from headboards to ottomans to chairs and what have you, but you can basically, or your designer can, take a piece and build it their own. So choose the case, choose the drawer design, choose the hardware, choose the legs, choose the colors. So there was this one dresser and it was white on the case and then it had 3 big drawers going across and every drawer was a different shade of turquoise.
It's like an ombre kind of, yeah.
Okay, yeah, in a kind of ombre style. And the designer had specified the exact Sherwin-Williams colors that she wanted and they made it. It was the coolest thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the painting process at Vanguard was extremely
done by people, not by machines.
Yes.
Unbelievable, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes you just say, okay, yeah, shopping online was fun for a minute, but not anymore.
Yeah.
So we left Vanguard and we went to the Hickory Furniture Mart, which I'd never been to, but basically it's a lot of the manufacturers that we use. It was, oh my gosh, Bernhardt, Theodore Alexander, much, everybody. And it's their, what is it? Is it their overruns? It was kind of like a nice outlet of furniture.
Yeah, it might be samples.
After shows, after show, showroom samples, after market special. So that was pretty cool. I'd never been there before.
Yeah.
After that, we went to another designer in our group, her personal home.
Oh, God.
Seriously? The thing I love about interior design is that the inspiration never ends. And I am so inspired by so many different things. But for this evening, we went to this designer's home that was magnificent.
Yeah. Well, she was up in the mountains. Mm-hmm. The view was incredible, but upon walking, the bus had to stop at the end of her driveway, and we had to walk up her driveway. And one of the first things that you see is this beautiful sculpture. I guess I've never really been to a home that had so much outdoor considered art. Mm-hmm. These sculptures were huge, beautiful, just looked perfect in the setting.
It was strange because they were very contemporary, but they were in the woods.
Yes. Well, it was a very mid-century type home, and she explained to us that Asheville is in the top 3 of mid-century type homes, which I always thought like Palm Springs. Palm Springs may be the top one. I don't know, but the house was very mid-century, but the different types of art that she had in there.
I was fascinated. I mean, the way she curated, she had so much original art in her house. It should have looked cluttered and almost junky, but the way she made it flow, and I think the reason why was because it was a mix of sculptures, which I don't always think to purchase. Yep. Sculptures mixed with big art, little art,
pottery.
Yep.
Just so many different things.
But it's funny. I was so inspired by her house, and especially the outdoor, that the next day we were back at the Biltmore, and we went into the conservatory's, like the little gardens shop, and they had all these beautiful metal spinners, that you put in the ground and spin in the wind. And don't think I didn't scoop one up because I was so inspired by her. I got to put something in my yard now.
But it was a beautiful party. So it was all of the designers, which she, hosted in her home. They had it catered. It was wonderful. They had music. There was open bar. And I must give a shout out to PBM Brands and Curry and Company, because I think many of you know, and I've talked about this before, I would love to say that I drink wine, and I love wine, and I love to hold the glass like everybody does, but
because
I just don't,
first generation Italian.
I just don't like it. And so many events that we go to, really wine is what they always serve. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows that I love Bud Light. So Curry's, one of their reps was there, and she knew that they weren't going to have the kind of beer I like there. So she specifically went to a grocery store, and they had Bud Light for me there. So that was
and
just
didn't tell
really,
you,
really,
just showed up with it.
Just showed up with it.
That was the sweetest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
I know.
I mean, it was awesome. So that was the end of that, and we fell asleep, within 3 seconds at the end of that day, and started day 3. And day 3, we were back at the historic Biltmore, but we were on a garden tour. And we were learning all about the choices that George Vanderbilt and the acclaimed landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted made, and how their designs have endured for more than a century. And again, if you can get to Asheville, I literally could have spent hours in that little greenhouse.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of a big greenhouse.
A big greenhouse, yeah.
But they had like 6 trains running through there. And the man that was in there, you could tell he was so proud of them. He had them all working. But they had an actual mini Biltmore made from sticks, acorns, like there's even
all
like a diagram showing you of all the organic material that it used to make this Biltmore. It was
it was just stunning. It was plant upon plant upon plant upon plant, all planted within each other, and the flowers and everything. You just walk through these narrow aisles, and you just see all these incredible.
They were all healthy,
it was
colorful. Absolutely beautiful. And the outdoor, so here it was end of August, so you'd think, most of the things would be kind of tired and kind of whatever, but they must know what to grow at what time, because it was still colorful and it was still very beautiful.
It was really impressive.
And their gift shop was really cool.
Yes. So after that, we had a closing keynote by James Farmer of James Farmer Designs. And this is another thing that, as designers, we were inspired by the designer's home we went to that evening, and of course this whole thing. But one thing that's really important for us to do is stay on top of what other interior designers are doing that are at the top of their game. And James Farmer is a Southern designer. He was so hilarious. And he was talking all about just loving interior design from as a child. And he told this whole story about how his mother had an interior designer come to their house in South Georgia when he was young. And to hear his mother tell the designer kind of what she loved. And her favorite thing that she loved was Carl. And she wanted Carl everywhere, all over the house. And the designer was like, well, who's Carl? Is he a fellow designer? I don't know. Is he, where does he come from? And she's like, Carl.
The color.
Not blush, not orange. And she's like, oh, coral. So the way James tells the story. So now anytime I see that, I'm like, look, Joanne, it's Carl. And it was just great. Just hearing his story. I was so inspired by him and what
And he's written several books. And
he's got a ton of books out there. Yeah, if you're looking for a great coffee table book, just go onto Amazon and look up James Farmer. He's really impressive.
Yeah. So, what was nice too is as we were leaving, the editor of Designers Today, Jane Dagme, came over to us and said, thank you so much for taking, time out of your schedule to come. And I thought that was really nice because I felt like we should be thanking them, but they really appreciate us taking the time, because it does. It's 3 days away from our office and away from our work, but we feel like this stuff is very important for us to do. It helps us to, kind of get professional relationships with our colleagues because we learn so much from them, and to meet the manufacturers in an intimate and kind of casual environment.
Which is a unique opportunity, to really sit down with them. So a lot of people were getting CEU credits from this class, which is awesome. I mean, from this course, but it just, to be behind the scenes and to see the stories behind the pieces that we're choosing for our clients and meet the people that are designing them and physically making them, it was a proud thing. Really.
And it was funny because right after this event, we did our install in Kiowa, and I would say 60% of the items that we sourced in there were Vanguard. And I was looking at that console, and I'm looking at the way it was, I know of the painting process.
And you're thinking about that paint booth.
And I was thinking about that woman who was over there painting, and it just gave it, more
new
special.
Meaning. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of takeaways from this kind of event, but I think also, let me just reiterate, I think if you have a few extra dollars to spend, buying something that's made in America that's this kind of quality versus a cheap import that lands at your door in 2 days, to me, that is quality above all else. And you can always design your home in a high-low fashion and come out, on top. So I think that that's something that before you make a purchase, really think about that. And at the minimum, spend that money on upholstery.
Yeah, for sure. And so, we have a lot to see in our industry. We're constantly being inspired by things, whether it be fashion, automotive, historic places like the Biltmore, nature, just spending time with other designers and learning about their projects is really one of the reasons we go to this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important that what I kind of thought about afterwards was, we all have a story. The Vanderbilts family had a beautiful history and story. They lived in that house until the 50s. To think that somebody lived in that grand castle mansion not that long ago. James Farmer, we all have a history and we all have a story, and it should play out in the interior of your home. And I think a lot of people don't bring that out and really celebrate it. And that conference was just a kind of a reminder of how important that is when we're doing our designs to really make them custom.
Yeah,
for our clients.
We're working on a project right now with a couple that have 2 daughters, and they recently went on a trip to Europe with them. And so they said, we're gonna get some art, we're gonna get some things that we can, bring back home. And so they gave us 2 pieces of art. They were,
breathtaking.
they're like 44 inches wide, and it's just a whole panoramic of Milan, and it's all done hand sketched. Absolutely beautiful, and it's going to be framed. It's going to be done, in a
they'll have that
archival in a museum glass. It's going to be done right, so that this is something that those girls will be able to have and pass down. It's just kind of sad to me that people just buy a piece of art that means nothing, and then they just let it go.
I know it.
So not that every single item in your house has to be this, but
high-low, peeps. High-low.
High-low.
Yep. So thank you again to Jane Dagme, Designers Today Magazine, and PBM Events, because for inviting us and letting us be a part of that, because it really just makes us better designers, and we really appreciate it. So,
yep.
All right. We're almost to the end again.
Yeah.
All right. Funny quotes. Which one do you want? Funny or serious?
I don't care.
Okay. I'll do the funny one. Husband, I thought you were dieting. Me, I am. Husband, you just ate 6 Oreos. Me, but I wanted to eat 12. See, I'm dieting. That is so me. Everything in proportion. Yes. 2 glasses of wine instead of 4.
Okay, this next one. Beyonce rehearsed for 8 months for a 2-hour performance. Think about that next time you want something in your business to work right away. Think about that. 8 months.
That is such a good quote for us today as we are working on our rebrand, which we told you guys all about, and we're heading in the right direction. We're trying to be done by the end of September. It'll probably be a little bit into October, but it's taking time. And even now, 14 years in, we still sit back and say, how can we recreate this machine? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have to be patient with ourselves. I get really impatient.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because we've been in business 14 years, and there's things that we did maybe 13 years ago that was a very small seed that was planted, but somehow came back around 10 or 12 years later. So just keep at it. Keep doing what you're doing.
Plant those seeds.
Plant the seeds, and they will, come back at some point. It's just not everything's a quick fix.
Yeah, which is the lesson of our lives these days.
Younger.
All right, everybody. We all appreciate you very much for listening.
And if you like our website or if you like our podcast, go ahead and give us a 5-star review.
Please do. It really
subscribe to it.
Really helps our ratings. So, and to help other people learn about us. So, if you could just take a quick second to write that review, we would so appreciate it.
Yeah. All right.
Have a great day. Thanks.
Bye.
Join Joanne and Kelly weekly for a lively conversation about trends, travels to industry events, current design projects, the good, the bad, and the ugly, do's and don'ts, product recommendations, and more. Be sure to follow the fun on Facebook. They're on Instagram @Kandrak-Cole, and of course, you've got to visit them online at kandrak-cole.com for more information.